Hello, I'm Marian Arrowsmith, and welcome to our show. Today, our guest is Ms. Lois Plaunche. Welcome. We're glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
And where were you teaching when you got here?
I started out at Slidell High. I had hoped to teach home economics, and Mr. McGinty looked at my record and he says, "Oh, I'm so glad you can teach chemistry." He says, "All the men are leaving." So, of course, I got stuck with chemistry and science for a couple of years. But when I came to Slidell, no, that was the superintendent. I want to tell you about the superintendent up there. And he offered me a job in Plauche, a large school that was, people came from everywhere to it. And he said, "If you go there and we'll teach chemistry." I said, "Oh, no." And you'll have the home economics. And my first 2 years of teaching, I had the chemistry department, the lunchroom, and the home economics department, all three.
So
but he says, "I'll meet you at 6 o'clock in the morning and build anything you want." It was a large school. He did. He met me at 6 o'clock and built cabinets and cubby holes. And
So when you said you had the lunchroom, you were in charge of...
I was in charge of the lunchroom. I had to
fix the lunch?
Supervise that.
For everybody.
And when I look back now, I don't know how I survived those 2 years. I didn't get any sleep, I know. And teaching chemistry the first time. I didn't like chemistry. I loved my professors in college, but I didn't like chemistry. But I had to learn. When you teach it, you've got to learn. I was up till 2 o'clock every morning trying to prepare for the next day. And then when I came here, Mr. McGinty, first thing he said, "Would you teach chemistry?" Because I don't have an opening in home economics, so I did another 2 years. But they turned out to be wonderful years, because some of my most wonderful students are now lawyers and doctors and people that I'm so proud of. And I go to all the 50-year reunions and get to see them, and it's just so wonderful that I did it. I wouldn't have chosen that, but I did enjoy it. So.
Well, I think I remember hearing a story, something that happened to you when you were teaching chemistry. You had...
That's probably, during the war we couldn't get the acids and everything to do all the formulas. And I had Mr. McGinty's son, LB, in my class, and we were trying so hard to get things, I wanted to teach something that they would enjoy. When I was in chemistry, there was nothing interesting for girls to me. And you learn the formulas, and it didn't have anything to do with what you were doing. So I wrote back to Northwestern, and I said, "I want some formulas from makeup and testing makeup and making makeup, and for the men to take corn and make Karo and everything." And that's what we did. I had the boys find old dry corn, and it took it 6 weeks, but when we got the acid, we made that, and did all that, and that's why I was so interested. But we had waited for this acid to dissolve the corn so we could get the Karo out of it. And one day, Mr. McGinty called and he said, "Lois, if you'll send a couple of boys to the station, the school at that time was right close to the train station." He said, "Send them over, your acid has finally come in." Well, they were so glad, and in those days they came in big 5-gallon jugs like this, and they must have been slinging it all the way back to school. And instead of putting it under the hood, I was so glad, I just had it down on the desk. And in those days, all the desks were a different level, and we were down, the teachers were down at the bottom. And I remember that day, we were all so excited, so I said, "I'm going to just open it. I mean, I'm not going to move it or anything." And when the fumes came out from them shaking it, I had on my first nylons. Those were the first nylons made.
And those were hard to get.
You remember Bill Sauberg at High Society? We got out, and I had on a new suit, the first thing I'd had since I'd married. And those fumes came out, and my hose melted to my ankles. I mean, they just went down. And spots of my clothes, and I had to go in and change. But I can remember looking up at those kids, and their mouths were open. Mouths and eyes were open wide. I'll never forget that. But a lot of things happened like that I can look back now and laugh. I could have cried then, but didn't do any good. And another thing I was thinking about the other day, I have taught so many that I go back to see in Slidell now. Of course, I've been with Melanie since the storm. I lost everything. And I see all these former students that in fact, I went yesterday, but I didn't see many of them. But I started a club there 32 years ago, called XYZ, Extra Years of Zest. And for people who lost their spouses, we say 55 and older, but we've always had some younger too. And I've done that for 32 years, so I went last Wednesday, the nurse let me go, because it was the last time. I don't have it during the summer, the last time children fall. And I get to see about 20 couples that I taught.
How wonderful.
And it's just so wonderful. They're still young people to me. They're grandparents now, but to me they're still my boys and girls. And I enjoy that so much because it makes me younger. It makes me feel like I'm going back a little bit. But I wanted to tell you about Slidell. When I came to Slidell, my husband was teaching it, what was Slidell grammar then. And the class I taught first, I went there after I taught 2 years of chemistry. I went there because there was no opening in home economics. Am I talking too much?
No, go ahead.
I never stop.
We love your stories.
I remember the 4th grade. I enjoyed it so much that I didn't think I'd ever enjoy the lower grades. And I taught 4th grade 2 years. And then, I taught 4th grade 1 year, then I went to 6th grade. No, 2 years and went to 6th grade, so I taught the same ones in 4th and 6th. Then I went back to high school and taught those girls 9 through 12. So those I had 6 years.
You really got to know them well.
They really were they really belonged to me. And I remember that 4th grade, it was so strange. I had 3 Patricia Anns. Patsy Foles, who is I knew school board president's mother. I taught his mother and father. Let me see who the others were. You weren't, none of you were here then. One was a Taylor, and one was, Patricia Pichon was, Kennedy was Bill's, Bill were Trey's parents, and there was one other, I can't remember who it was now, but things like that, I look back now, but many of those people are dead. Like one of the Fritchie boys that I was so close to. And almost every year there are 3 or 4 of them dying. When I go back to the 50-year reunions now, it just breaks my heart to see how many have gone that don't even live here. But even in Slidell, it seems like I feel like I ought to be going instead of them. They ought to be here enjoying their grandchildren. But
we're glad you're here.
I enjoy going back so much.
Tell us what Slidell was like then.
It was, there were 3 schools, the Catholic school, the Slidell High, and the grammar school. So, and I was at the high school, I was at the grammar.
And Slidell Grammar is what is now
Brock.
Okay, and you taught at Slidell High and then went to Slidell Grammar and then went back to Slidell High.
Right.
And your husband was?
He was a teacher and then became principal. He was at that school almost 40 years. He never taught anywhere else. So that was really...
Well, he came into my classroom when I first came here, and that's where I first met him.
Oh, right.
Was he came over, at the time we used to observe on different sides of the parish, and he used to come, he came into my classroom when I was teaching out in Folsom.
Oh, really?
And did an observation. And I knew Melanie at the time.
Yeah.
So, and we've talked about Melanie twice. Tell us who Melanie is.
Well, Melanie is my youngest daughter. She's principal at Magnolia Trace.
And she's been principal for, I bet, close to 25 years, huh?
I'm not sure.
I know she's been there a long time, since it started. And that was this building that we're in.
Yeah, this was the first school. I remember when this was built, I helped go buy pictures and all for this. She was so thrilled when she came into this school, this building. It was wonderful. And my other daughter, Billy Mae, I have, my husband, of course, was a principal. My daughter's a principal, but my daughter, Billy Mae, is a retired teacher. And her daughter, Anita Powell, taught at Little Oak and I can't think of the other school I've been now for 23 years. She retired now, and she's in Houston. So I have a granddaughter that's a retired teacher.
So
and
you have a lot of educators in your family.
Yeah, So but I'm going to tell you what made me decide to teach when I couldn't go to school till I was 7 years old because we lived in Montrose and had to travel 3 miles on a bus to a large consolidated school at Cypress, Louisiana. That was about midway between Natchitoches and Montrose. And I was just 3 pounds when I was born. They thought I was too small to travel on the bus. And my mother didn't want me. So I didn't go to school till I was 7. But when my sister, who was 6 years younger than I, went to school, she was spoiled. And we had a 3-story building, brick building. And almost every morning, as soon as we'd get to school, she would get sick. She didn't have a pencil. She didn't have this. She didn't have that. And they'd send for me all day, and I'd go down. So I'd stay and help the teacher. Miss Prudhomme was the first grade teacher there. And I got so used to it that when she was out, and I became a senior, they'd send me to take her class. So that's when I decided I wanted to teach. I thought then I'd teach grade school. Then when I took home economics, I said, oh no, it's got to be home economics. And I remember I'm trying to locate now. I have a young brother in Arizona and 2 sisters in North Louisiana, still living, and I've been trying to locate a picture. Where we lived in Montrose, there was just a commissary, and everything came in on the train. That was the center. We'd go out, and the young people would go out and meet the train at night. And there wasn't much to do, you can see. And everything came in on the train, so we'd order fabric. And so I ordered linen, and I had a little brother, 2 little brothers that would ring the bell at church, and we always lived near the church somehow. And I wanted to make them white linen suits because in those days, all the men wore white linen suits and white shoes. And I made a pattern and made white linen suits. And they must have been about 9 and 12 or something like that. I don't know. I can't locate that picture. And I look back now and I can't believe I did it. But I spent the whole summer and I made those suits. And if I ever find them, I'm going to take a picture and post it somewhere. But
you still do a lot of sewing.
And that's when I decided I would do home economics. Yeah, I teach arts and crafts with this XYZ group. We practically rebuilt that church when we lost everything. We had a whole block of buildings right next to the police station. And we do a lot of sewing, all kinds of crafts, and have a big sale.
That's the Methodist Church in Slidell.
First Methodist, And then during the year we have several sales. So I'm finally getting some of my former students in there. Right now it was so nice to have, I have one little lady that takes care of the programs for me, and another that's decorating the tables and things like that. I used to do everything, so it's so good to have those that I taught 50 years ago to come in and do that. It's just wonderful to work with them. So
tell us a little bit about your husband, A.B.
Well, he was when he came to Slidell, he came from Plaucheville. He grew up in Plaucheville, and he had gone to school 2 years. I've forgotten what they called the degree that when they could teach with 2 years. But I met him at Northwestern. He had come back. He had to continue his education. I met him during the summers at Northwestern, and finally ended up getting his master's and all the other things. And we were so different that it just seemed. I have a young friend who is my pastor in Slidell, but she lives near me. I live in the Lakes and she lives in Greenleaves, so she takes me every Monday. And she's like a daughter to me. We've gotten to be so close. And now on the 13th of June, she's going to become the main minister at Pearl River Methodist Church.
Oh, how wonderful.
And she told me she didn't think, if they offered her, she didn't think she'd leave because she couldn't take me to Slidell every Monday morning. She takes me every Monday. I said, you can't do that, child. You got to go on. But they offered her Pearl River. She says, good, that's halfway. So now she insists every Monday she's going to take me to Slidell before she goes to Pearl River. And then every second Wednesday when we have our dinner, she's going to take me. So I tell you, the schools and the churches are just all
Taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
wonderful.
enjoy it so much.
That's wonderful.
But even at my age, I still keep trying, so I keep very busy.
Well, I know that you were very special in what you did, and I've known you a long time, and I know how wonderful you are. And here we have a picture of you when you retired, and the school dedicated their yearbook
Yeah.
to you. It says, for 10 years, Miss Lois Plaunche has taught school in Slidell. Besides teaching classes in home economics, holding conferences, and making visits to pupils' homes, she has worked enthusiastically and industriously as a sponsor for the local FHA chapter. Along with her many duties, she has found time to direct the work on the junior-senior banquet and prom. Without her, this annual event would never have been such a consistent success. In recognition of and with sincere thanks for Ms. Plaunche's contributions to life at Slidell High, we dedicate this 1960 yearbook to her. That's wonderful, and a picture of you. And I think we have a picture here of your husband when he was principal at, it was called Slidell Grammar, Slidell Elementary. And here he was king of Carnival in
the Women's
Slidell
Civic Club Carnival. Mm-hmm.
in 1968. And then here we have a picture of Brock Elementary.
Before it was renovated.
Mm-hmm. Before Katrina. Okay, and then here we have a picture of you and your husband at your, tell us about that.
That was the 50th anniversary, our 50th anniversary. That was 2 years before he died. And the girls gave us that. Oh, that's...
Tell us about this picture.
That's a picture of, I've forgotten where we went somewhere. I think that was in North Carolina. It was my birthday, and as you know, the teachers don't get Social Security, so I had to stop teaching when I had taught 16 years. I became very ill. So I had no Social Security, and I didn't get, in those days, unless you taught 20 years, you did not get retirement. So I got no retirement from the school board. So I sold weak hair, mink oil. And I was with a group of beautiful ladies, two of my neighbors that I just love dearly. And we were up in North Carolina for that convention. And it was my birthday, so they gave me a big birthday party and dressed me up and took pictures of me there. That's what that was. I wanted to tell you, too, when we first started teaching, I look back now, I told my granddaughter when she started teaching, both my husband and I made $85 a month. Then when they didn't send him into service, he was coaching and working at the shipyard after hours. And he got $10 for coaching, I think, in a little bit shipyard. And that's what, and of course I got a little bit because I taught the year round. I was still visiting homes when I came here. And, but can you imagine $85 a month? But we wouldn't, my husband was the one that said, we won't buy anything till we have the money. And we didn't have a car. We saved and got a home within a few years. Just a few years that we bought our home and made it. And now I look at what the children have today and how they start out. But we didn't know we were poor. Everybody else was. But that's the way it was. Where I grew up was always, everybody was about the same, you know, and you were satisfied with what you had.
You've mentioned home visits, that when you were a home ec teacher that you had to visit students'
I taught
homes.
on a 12-month basis, and you had to visit all your patients at home and give them projects to do and visit them. And I worked on more machines, every kind there was. In fact, they would come to the schools to clean and oil your machines in those days.
So you went into their homes and taught the girls how to sew?
No. I would go in to visit and see what they were doing with their projects.
Okay. So what kind of projects?
Summer, sewing projects usually. Well, they were sometimes cooking and all. But then the mothers always had machines, and I was to help with those. And I've taught in Slidell, I taught adults during the day and children, and a lot of adults at night. I'd have classes all summer long. So I really had just a few weeks off in the summer, was all.
I understand that UNAB also brought sometimes children into your home who needed a place, a temporary place.
Yeah, we had several boys. We built an upstairs for our children when they got married. They could live there a while before they found their own home. And we had boys living there. Jerry Felder lived with us many years before he was married. All his children called me Momo, just like my grandchildren do. And we've had others that came for a while. One time at the Methodist church, a young girl's mother died and the father traveled, was not at home, so we took her in for a while. That's the only ones until I can remember right now. When one young man whose uncle went to Northwestern with us came to meet us when he finished college. He wanted to teach here. We took him in. I mean, we didn't take him in the house, but we took him under our wing, and he was like a son to us, and his children were like our children, you know. And it's been a good many like that. And yeah, I've had a lot of adopted children.
That's great.
But
we're getting close to running out of time. Is there anything else that you'd like to, anything else you want to share with us?
I would just like to say that I don't think there's anything more rewarding than teaching, because I feel like you get to know those people so well, you get to know their parents. And especially when I taught, I don't know that it's much the same. And when we taught home economics, we taught everything. I do remember this. After I retired, Banker Walcott, a friend of mine, called me to Salmon to teach one day, and he said, "Miss Lois, please come teach." He said, "I don't know what, but please come." And when I got there, I think he gave me math, which I didn't want to do. And down the hall, going to class, I met Margie Mayfield. She's Margie Packer now, and I had taught her home economics in high school. He says, "Oh, Miss Lois, I'm so glad to see you. I'm starting marriage and family life today, and I want you to take that class if Banky will let you." So Banky said, "Okay," and I went and taught marriage and family life, which I had taught her. And she went to that class. So when I went back to the math class, I said, "If Mr. Banky would let you, would you teach us that?" So I taught marriage and family life the rest of the day. So I've gone, and I went to McGinty one time. He called the same thing. He says, "I don't know what you'll teach." And he gave me, I think, I had taught with Otis Bryan. We had our own building at Slidell High, you know, home economics, one tremendous rooms.
And Otis Bryan went on to become assistant superintendent.
Right, and he taught agriculture, and I taught that, and we'd exchange classes, meat cutting and things like that. So he said, when it got down to it, he says, "You're going to teach agriculture." I said, "I can't teach agriculture." He says, "Well, you did with Otis. You should exchange all the time." So I taught, I don't know, parliamentary cuts of meat. I don't know what I did, but I've gone back and taught a lot of
different things you've taught over the years.
And I went back to Abney and I taught lower grades, say, and I enjoyed that. I really taught. Well, in fact, I taught longer there than the 16 years I had taught in regular school, because I got so close to the principals and all. Miss Ruth Dumasson is there, and all the teachers are lovely.
Anything else that you'd like to share with our viewers today?
Well, Delta Kappa Gamma has been just a delightful thing for me. One thing that I found out after I joined, we went to it must have been a statewide conference in New Orleans, and I found out that 5 people that I had taught me at Northwestern were in, and I didn't even know what Delta Kappa Gamma was. But they were 2 of my choice people, you know. And then I got so interested that I didn't I was teaching the year round. I didn't have much time, but I loved Delta Kappa Gamma, and I'm so glad both my daughters were honorary teachers and were asked to come in.
That's where I met you, I think.
That's right. That's where we met. And we have some young people there now that are just doing so well, and I'm so happy that it's going on, because it can influence young people's new teachers so much.
And I think you're our senior member in the area in Delta Kappa Gamma.
I've been in more than 50 years, and my 50th year ended about the same time I became 90. And they sent me a dozen red roses. I'm telling you, I just couldn't believe it. All those young girls just couldn't believe I was still walking at that age. But they have been wonderful, and I've enjoyed it so much. So I'm still going. I haven't been the last couple of meetings because I haven't been out of bed most of the time, but I'm back.
But you're up and ready to go
I
now.
hope
That's
to go.
great. What advice or words of wisdom would you give to beginning teachers today?
I think, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me a lot of them go in thinking they're going to make a lot of money. That's not what you do teaching. You have to enjoy it, and you have to plan for each student and look at that child and try to give them something they need, and everyone needs something different, I think. And I think you can do so much more than you realize. You don't know it when you're doing it, but it shows up later. And I think they should be interested in every student. The worst students I had, I say worst, the one that gave me a little trouble, not many ever gave me trouble, but the ones that gave me the most trouble were always the ones that came back and thanked me. I had one, I'm going to tell you this, one little lady could not pass children's sewing. We always, in early days, we taught them how to do children's sewing. She could never finish it, never finished. But after she got married, she came to my house one day. She had 3 little children, and she had made their clothes. And I never did give up on her. And I said, don't ever give up on any of them, because there's something there you can find that you can relate to, I think, in every child. And you can help them in some way, I think.
That's wonderful.
I think that
Wonderful.
would be
Wonderful way to end this program on those words.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us. Well, that's our show for today. I want to offer special thanks to our guest, Lois Plaunche, for sharing some great stories as we learn more about St. Tammany and our outstanding school district. We hope you, our viewers, have enjoyed this show and will join us again for Reflections, where we discover how what has happened in the past can influence our future. See you next time.